Right, so let's talk about what just happened. Britain's military base in Cyprus got hit by a drone. Not a hypothetical threat, not a warning, an actual strike on sovereign British territory. And somehow the British government is still telling you they're not at war. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the US president just demanded Iran's total and unconditional surrender. 24 states are suing the White House over tariffs, and the Pentagon dusted off a doctrine from 1823 to threaten Latin America. I've saved something particularly absurd for the end of this episode. Trust me, you're going to want to hear it. If you're watching this, do me a quick favor, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We spend a lot of time researching and fact-checking everything you hear on this channel, because the last thing any of us need right now is more noise. If you want to go even further, consider sponsoring the channel or dropping a super thanks. It genuinely makes a difference. Now let's get into it. So on March 1st, a drone, believed to be an Iranian-made Shahed, struck the RAF base at Akrotiri in southwestern Cyprus. It damaged an aircraft hangar. No casualties, thankfully, but make no mistake, this was an attack on British sovereign territory. The next day, 2 more drones were intercepted heading for the same base. A senior commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard went on state television and said, quote, "We will launch so many missiles towards Cyprus that the Americans will be forced to leave." And here's where things get really interesting. Britain owns 2 military bases on Cyprus, Akrotiri and Dekilia, together making up about 3% of the island's landmass. These aren't leased. They're sovereign British territory under a 1960 independence agreement, and they've been a launching pad for Western operations in the Middle East for decades. Now, the Cypriot government is furious. Their ambassador to the UK said, "The people are disappointed, the people are scared, the people could expect more." A government spokesperson stated there was no clear clarification that the bases would, under no circumstances, be used for any purpose other than humanitarian reasons. When asked if Cyprus would try to renegotiate the base's status, the answer was chilling. "We're not ruling anything out." But here's the reality check. Britain didn't lease these bases. It kept them as part of the deal that gave Cyprus independence. The only way Britain leaves is if Britain agrees to leave. HMS Dragon, one of Britain's Type 45 destroyers, is being deployed to Cyprus, but it won't arrive until next week. France and Greece have already moved to bolster the island's defences. Britain? Still packing. And this connects to something even more troubling. The British Prime Minister has officially stated that the UK is not a participant in offensive actions against Iran. But here's what the UK is doing: providing bases for missile interception, deploying a warship, and quietly allowing Allied forces to operate from British territory. Inside the cabinet, there's no unity. Some ministers want to stand firmly with Washington, others fear a repeat of Iraq. The official line from Downing Street is, the country is not a participant in offensive actions. Right. Britain is just casually hosting the party, providing the venue, the security, and the drinks, but absolutely not a participant. Got it. But wait, it gets better. And by better, I mean more absurd. If you're wondering what happens if things escalate further, the UK government has a plan. The Home Secretary has presented an emergency evacuation strategy for British citizens in the Persian Gulf. If airspace is fully closed, hundreds of thousands of Brits will be trapped. The proposed solution? Overland routes through Saudi Arabia and Jordan, on buses, through the desert. Insurance companies are quietly removing entire regions from coverage. The government's official advice? Don't panic, but be ready for anything. Reassuring, isn't it? Now, if you're finding this valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a comment or share this video with someone who should hear it. Comments and engagement genuinely help more people discover this channel, and right now, understanding what's actually happening has never been more important. Let me shift to the United States. The president just posted on Truth Social that there will be no deal with Iran, none, except total and unconditional surrender. He then added, seemingly without irony, that after this surrender, the US and its allies would make Iran great again. This is day 7 of the joint US-Israeli operation. The Israeli Air Force struck a secret government bunker in Tehran with 50 fighter jets. More than 30 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk. 6 American and 10 Israeli service members have lost their lives. Roughly 80 members of Iran's leadership have been eliminated, including the supreme leader himself. Spain called the war an extraordinary mistake beyond the bounds of international law. Washington Post reports that Russia is feeding Iran intelligence on the location of American military assets. And here's a detail that tells you everything. Britain authorized the use of its bases. Canada and Australia backed the operation. Make Iran great again. The White House branding team apparently has exactly one template, and they apply it to everything from tax cuts to military campaigns. Meanwhile, back home, 24 state attorneys general just sued the administration in the Court of International Trade in New York, trying to block sweeping new import tariffs. They argue the White House is trying to circumvent a recent Supreme Court ruling that found most of the tariffs imposed earlier to be illegal. The states say the administration exceeded presidential authority and that the new tariffs will raise costs for businesses, governments, and consumers. Economists are warning that the combination of tariffs and a weakening job market could prove devastating. The White House's defense? The tariffs are aimed at addressing serious problems. Nearly half of all states are now suing the federal government. The other half is presumably just waiting to see who wins before picking a side. And the Pentagon, not to be left out of the drama, has decided to resurrect the Monroe doctrine, yes, the one from 1823, to threaten Latin America over drug cartels. The defense secretary told a conference in Miami that if countries in the region can't handle the cartels themselves, Washington is ready to act unilaterally. The White House's chief strategist called the cartels the ISIS and Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere and declared that there is no legal solution, only a military one. Representatives from over a dozen countries attended, including Argentina, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic. Experts warn that militarizing the fight could weaken civilian institutions throughout the region, a 200-year-old doctrine as the foundation of 2026 foreign policy, apparently in Washington. 2 centuries is not an expiration date, it's just aging like fine wine. Now, here's the story I promised you'd want to hear. Remember those ultra-wealthy British tax exiles living in Dubai? The ones who moved their official residence to avoid paying UK taxes? Well, when Iran started hitting targets in the UAE and commercial flights were cancelled, some of these people were stuck in London. Safe, comfortable, far from the explosions, and they panicked. Not because their Dubai homes were in danger, but because being in London too long might push them over the residency threshold and make them liable for British taxes. According to the Financial Times, some tried to charter private jets to fly back into an active conflict zone rather than risk a tax bill. Let that sink in for a moment. The choice between a missile landing near your hotel and a line on your tax return, and the missile loses. These aren't people who physically moved to Dubai for the lifestyle. They just changed their paperwork. They count the days they spend in Britain like a prisoner counts days until release. And when a war disrupted that calculation, they chose the war zone over the taxman. If that doesn't tell you everything about how broken the system is, I don't know what does. Your support means the world to me. Every like, every comment, every share, they all tell YouTube's algorithm that this content matters, and that helps more people find us. If you've been watching for a while and this channel has helped you make sense of the chaos, consider hitting that sponsor button or leaving a super thanks. Producing this kind of independent content takes real time, real research, and real commitment to getting the facts right. Your support is what keeps this going. Not advertisers, not networks, just you and me figuring this out together. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. I read every single one. And thank you, genuinely, for being part of this community. It matters more than you know.